This week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by any commercials, although ironically it does feature someone who's in a lot of commercials. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob. Guys, it's another solo show, which of course means I'm speaking to someone from the industry again, which is a really exciting trend that's just popped up recently. I'm loving talking to all these fantastic people from film. Today's guest is almost a part two to a previous interview I did. If you remember a few weeks back, I spoke to the wonderful Jonathan Salemi about his film The Last Deal. If you haven't seen the flick, it's an incredible action thriller about the world of marijuana and when the legalization of it came into California and how that impacted dealers and growers and things like that. And today I'm lucky enough to have one of the stars of the film on the show, which is very exciting. Now, with these types of films, it's very easy to fall into those repetitive patterns of just being violent and kind of thrilling and aggressive, without any heart. But thankfully, this film kind of subverts the expectations, and it's mainly in a lot of part to my guest today, who is the bleeding heart of this film. Without this character, without this actress, I do think it could have fallen into just another drug film, but thankfully we've got a wonderful performer in that film. The entire cast is wonderful, but she's brilliant, and she really is the beating heart of this movie. So please welcome to the show the incredibly talented Jeffri Lauren. Hey, Jeffri, how you
Oh, thank
doing?
you. That was so sweet. Thanks.
I
Hi.
Not at all. I was talking to Jonathan about it, and I said to her, I said, when I grew up, I was born in the late 80s, and I
Mhm.
grew up, kind of my coming of age period and watching films was in the 2000s. So I saw a lot of those action films that were like, we need to tell aggressive drug stories, and this is what teenage boys will like, and they all kind of had that same mold. They kind of fit that same mold. And watching The Last Deal, I was like, oh, I wonder if that's going to be like those movies that I watched growing up, and it is, except we have your character who really, I think, grounds it in a very earnest way that's makes it so much easier to connect to emotionally. So congratulations on your wonderful movie, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much. That's a great observation. I agree, but thank you.
Thank you so much for coming along. I've been trying to get the word out about the movie quite a bit, but how are you? You're on the East Coast today, is that right?
I am on the East Coast today. Yeah.
Fantastic, lovely. Um, well, we'll talk about The Last Deal and your incredible role in that film, but I always like to go back with my guests first of all. So, um, I guess my first question, Jeffrey, is what's your relationship with film been like? Have you always been a film fan? Is it something you came to later? And I guess the second part of that question is, have you always wanted to be a performer as well?
I have always been a film fan, a film junkie for sure. I think from the time that I could talk, I was reciting film lines at the most inopportune times, of course. But my mother has plenty of stories about that. But yeah, I've always been a film fan, but I really got my start in the industry through commercial work.
Okay.
So that was the majority of kind of what I've done. The Last Deal was actually my very first film
Mm.
and feature role in a film. And I had done some dabbling in background work, just LA life and being on sets. I've had the opportunity to observe some amazing actors, like the likes of Will Ferrell and
Oh wow.
just a ton of people that I've been in those spaces, but to actually have a feature role in a film was like, oh wow, this is the real deal. So no pun intended. But the majority of my experience has been in the commercial sector. So it was a different experience and I really valued, Jonathan trusting me with this role.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I did go through your IMDb earlier this week. I was like, I wonder if there's anything else I have access to that I can watch her in just to prepare for it. But also, I just really enjoy you as a performer. Like, I'm not just feeding lines at this point. Like, I think it is such a grounded and earnest performance. It really does help set that film apart from others in the genre. And I was shocked to find out that that was the only feature film you'd been in. I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm bummed out. I don't have more to
Mhm.
watch, but what an incredible debut! Like so wonderful, as I mentioned. So, um, what do you prefer? You said you've been working mainly in commercials. So is commercial work kind of more your jam, or are you now hungry for more film roles? What's that kind of progression been like?
Yeah, so commercial is inherently my jam, just
Hmm.
second nature. But the film really opened my eyes to kind of what you can do with such amazing talent.
Hmm.
And it's really inspired me to be a part of film, I think more so behind the scenes than on camera, if I'm
Oh,
frank.
wow.
Just kind of observing the process in a different way, and just seeing how well executed things were with really such a small group,
Yeah.
was really inspiring to kind of wanting to dabble in more direction and production. But I'm always going to love doing on camera work, and if the opportunity came in film, of course, I would do that all over again because I
Yeah.
had such a good time. And I don't know if like my experience is unique in that my cast was so great. I had an amazing support system with it being my first feature role. But yeah, if I could replicate that experience again, I love film on what's on, in front of the camera or behind the camera. But commercial is always my second nature. But there's no growing experience. I feel like with commercial,
Sure.
it's very on the beat. It can be repetitive to a certain degree, but it's fun. And if
Yeah.
there is an immediate gratification that comes with commercial, that I do love too. But I love how broadening the experience of working with a cast for such an extended period of time, building those relationships, building that character. I fell in love with it.
Oh, that's amazing. I think it's really interesting that after just one film, you knew straight away, like, oh, I like this, but I'm interested in what's going on behind the camera. I find
Mhm.
that quite fascinating. And given your sensibilities, just watching the choices you make in the movie, I'd be really intrigued to see what you did with as a director or behind the scenes. So, given that you've now done this, you've mentioned you've got an interest. Have you thought about? Have you seriously considered going into a directorial role? Have you thought about writing? What's been going on since I've seen some nods and smiles?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate to have a really close friend that is an amazing writer. And so we have entertained collaborating again, I should say, because we did do a lot together in the heydays of well, my heyday of YouTube. I'm a late 80s baby too, but the early YouTube era of kind of collaborating on some things. And he has since kind of done some work with different networks and things of that nature. And yeah, we have some things that we're trying to navigate in the direction of me directing and kind of bringing his scripts to life. So yeah, we'll see what's in the pike here sooner than later.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Once that's all go when it all comes out, I'll have to have you come back on to talk about your directorial debut. Um,
Absolutely, you'll be the first one that I call.
yes, done. Excellent. I've made it. uh, Now you mentioned obviously. Oh, my voice just cracked. Apologies there. Um, Coming from the world of commercials, I know it's a very structured, regimented type of world. Like that's just, it's very much in and out kind of cattle call, just like in, shoot, out, that sort of thing. What was it like for you going into a film like The Last Deal, knowing that it was going to be shot guerrilla style? I know Jonathan mentioned that he was very honest about, like, hey, we don't have permits, we're just going to jump in, shoot it, and get out of there. Was that something you were nervous about undertaking, knowing that it was going to be completely different to the commercial world, or was it exciting for you? What was that whole process like for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was too. I wouldn't say it was too hard to wrap my brain around it in the sense that also in that content creation world that I've
Mhm.
dabbled in, you're pulling things off all the time. It's really not unheard of, born and raised and living in LA. People are shooting everything everywhere all the time. So yeah, no, I didn't have really any apprehensions about that. It was still very contained. Oddly enough, kind of the locations where we shot, it wasn't hyperly populated. It was just kind of, it felt very structured still. Um, and it made it exciting and fun too, though. So, you know, so yeah, no, it was a fun experience. Just again, kind of using your resources and getting things done, and sometimes you had little moments where things weren't as contained, but it would work out for the better. I remember at
Yeah.
one point we were shooting a scene on Hollywood Boulevard. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
but we chose the wee hours in the morning because obviously Hollywood Boulevard is very busy.
Yeah.
But at some point it was a moment of distraction, but it still kind of worked with what was going on in the scene. So sometimes you get improvisational moments that even with commercial, you're depending on what you're doing, improv is a huge factor that still worked, and you otherwise can't plan those things. So sometimes those things work in your favor, whether it's film or commercial.
That's really interesting. I should anticipate this being a film fan like I am, but I kind of reserve improv for comedy. I'm like, oh well, in comedy there's a lot of room for improv. I never would have considered that a film like this would have had that allowance. Was there much improv going on? Did you kind of bring your own kind of
There
material to
was
the table,
structure.
or?
Yeah, there was structure in terms of the dialogue. Well, one of the things that I really appreciated that Jonathan gave me the breathing room um, to kind of have more organic responses,
Yep.
even if it wasn't completely on the mark, but if it felt authentic
Yep.
to what was going on in that dialogue. Because, sometimes the way you structure things from pen to paper may not necessarily, moments may evolve in a different way. But you still want to respect and be as true to script as possible. I'm a real stickler on that. I also have a bit of a pet peeve in relationship to just completely changing,
Yep.
what the writer and director is trying to accomplish. But there was some breathing room to kind of play around with certain things and kind of evolve the character a little bit. So yeah, it was nice to have that space too.
Yeah, very cool. It definitely, as I said, it's interesting. Like the type of film it is, it could very easily fall into the same, as I mentioned before, the same as every other type of film in that genre, which can feel false. But even knowing it was based on a true story, even if you took that away, it feels so much more authentic. The performances feel more authentic. So that's really interesting to hear. And knowing now that you're like, oh yeah, I just kind of brought my own thing to it and tried to honor the character, like that makes total sense to me. Um,
Mhm.
I want to jump back a little bit. So we only really kind of touched on it briefly. So you've been a film fan forever, and you've always kind of wanted to be a performer. It sounds like you're around the same age as me. Were you primarily watching movies in the theater? Were you a video store kid? Were you a we have to tape this off the television type of child? Where does your relationship with film really begin?
Like well, I'll tell you a funny story.
Mm,
So again, I just naturally gravitated to film from the time that I was a baby and could start talking. Um, and so I was in a grocery store, I guess, at some point in the cart, and my mom's pushing the cart. And there's this really nice older senior lady who comes up and she's like, "Oh, look at this baby. She's so cute." And
mm.
she goes to rub my hand. And I say, "I'll get you my pretty and your little dog too." And she's like, "Oh my God." That is when my mom discovered I would watch films and I would rewind them, VCR days, and
Hmm.
rewind them and just recite lines. Um, and my very first commercial, I was 3 years old.
Wow.
So just generally the entertainment industry, I kind of had the traditional LA upbringing story in that way, where I just gravitated to it, was discovered in a sense, and it's just always been a part of my life.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe just inherently because I was discovered in the commercial sector more so, I just never really transitioned into film for whatever reason. I had a commercial run, and if you ask anybody, you try to stay on that run as long as possible because it's very fruitful in a monetary sense.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I have always loved film. One of my favorite, plenty of people love Lucille Ball. That's kind of who
Yeah.
I've modeled, when it comes to improvisational skills and who I've studied, people along those lines. I've been a Will Smith fan forever. So seeing even actors that go from TV shows to film to, and having that range.
Hmm.
So when the opportunity arises with film, I've always tried to be in that space and just prepare for an opportunity if it comes. And I got really lucky with the last deal, my opinion, for my first feature. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. You mentioned Will Smith. Will Smith, I think, for our
Mhm.
generation, I've decided we're definitely the same generation. I've made that decision.
Yeah.
I feel like he was the definition of cool for us when we were kids. Like you couldn't go a minute without seeing him in a movie. Was there
Absolutely.
a Will Smith role that like, I feel like we all connected with a particular one. For me, it was Men in Black. Like Men in Black
Yeah.
became my religion. It
I love it.
still is in many ways. We did a '90s retrospective a few years ago, and I talked
Yeah.
about how the '90s were defined by the three M's. You've got the Mummy, the Matrix, and Men in Black. Um,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
so, is there a particular Will Smith role or film that really was that for you? Like, which is the one that you connected with most?
Right. So, in kind of growing up with him, it's been different things at different
Mhm.
ages because it's been such pinnacle things. Like I was such a Will Smith fan. I think at like 10 years old, my mom's best friend got me a Will Smith basket and it had everything: t-shirts, all his movies, all his
Oh
music. So
wow.
I connected with him in various different ways in that he was multifaceted, right?
Yep.
So it first started off with me with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Sure.
Like the humor, that was my show. Everything stopped when it came on. And then I think my earliest film that I remember is Wild Wild West. Hokey, but fun. But the integration of music, right? So in
Mm,
my case, I come from a musical family, so that's just inherently my nature too. So seeing someone for the first time, at least from my exposure, that just did everything,
mhm.
I was like, oh my God. I like really connected with that. The humor, the film, the music, like he just had a whole 360 career very early on. So
Yeah.
in my eyes, especially growing up, Will Smith could do no wrong. My mom would jokingly have company and say, "Oh, Will Smith, he's okay." And I'm like, "Mom, stop talking about his ears are kind of big." I would get so upset, I would cry. Like that's how much. So he was the bar for me in terms of just general entertainment industry icon. Yeah.
I really like that you brought up Wild Wild West. I haven't seen it in a minute. I'll be honest. It's
Yeah.
probably been 15, 20 years since I watched it. But the one thing we really try to do on this podcast is celebrate all film. I kind of stick to this theory that if every film is someone's favorite, then there can be no bad films.
Yeah.
And Wild Wild West obviously has taken its lumps for sure. But I remember when it came out, I'm like, that looks like I was what 8, 10. I'm trying to think. It was '97, so I would have been like 9 years old.
Yeah.
That was the
About nine.
coolest thing.
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing in the world for me. I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
like there's giant mechanical spiders and there's gunslinging and stuff. Like, now we
It
can
was
look back.
healthy for a different age group, right? But I
Sure.
feel like for us, the timing was perfect, and it was a good
I mean,
one.
nostalgia's a hell of a drug. Go back and watch anything
Yeah.
we watched when we were kids, and some of I watched those old Ninja Turtle movies recently. I was like, wow, like the costumes definitely get worse over the series, but they're still fun.
I haven't circled back to Ninja Turtles, but I need to. Yeah.
For sure. Um, I like to ask my guests as well. It might be a little bit of a pretentious question, but I really love the idea of the gift of film. I think film is has become so disposable these days. People just like, it's just a movie, and we're so kind of quick to bash film or just like criticizing as not good without giving it any real thought. But I think film is a real gift. I think it's a great communication tool, and I
Right.
feel like it's if you get recommended the right film from the right person, it can be life changing. That's the way that I feel. Um, so I guess my question is there a moment in your life you can think of where someone gave you that gift where you received the recommendation and they're like, look, Jeffrey, you don't know why, but I know you. This is the film for you. You need to check this out. And then you did have that kind of almost, I guess, spiritual connection with it where it's just like, oh my God, it's unlocked everything
Oh,
for me.
wow.
The big question.
Yeah, because I am trying to remember the name of the film. Um, because if I'm not mistaken, the primary character was the first African American woman to win an Oscar,
Oh,
and it was
is it
film.
Gone with the Wind?
No, she played the mother to a daughter that passed for white, but she was technically yeah. Gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of the film. But the reason why I mentioned that particular film is because of the era that it came from, with it
Sure.
being like before it was nothing that I would ever really come across.
Yep.
And my mom was always really good for making me sit and watch certain films.
Yep.
And that really brought in my perspective on film now more than ever. Because as you mentioned, films now feel a little bit just kind of deadline driven,
Yes.
or we're in this era of just like pushing things out where you could really take your time. And I feel like the more that we've advanced in technology, the more that the essence of storytelling kind of gets watered down
Mhm.
with a rush factor or a technology driven factor. So that movie was one of the earliest, I think, color films, but technically that black and white era,
Yeah,
transitioning to color. I even think transitioning to color films makes a difference in the essence of how a story is told, right?
for sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so there's a certain patience with those era films that I appreciate now,
Mhm.
and they really take you on a journey, with
Yeah.
stories. So I guess to answer your question, there's been several films, but there's an era of film
Yeah.
that's very classic and resonates with a different heightened emotion,
Mm.
whether that's good or bad or happy or whatever the case might be. But there's a pacing that I feel like you can connect easier to those stories for some,
Yeah.
because I just feel like we're in the fast food era of storytelling.
I agree. I agree.
You
First
know?
of all, thank you for such a considered and measured answer. That might be the most like thoughtful answer I've ever had to that question. Um, so thank you. That was so lovely to kind of hear your insights there. But I agree with you. Like I love everything. I kind of have this notoriety online where if people know me, like, oh, that's the guy who won't say a bad thing about movies. It's like, yeah, because without movies, they unlocked the universe for me. So of course I love everything. Some are better
Yes.
than others for sure.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you, and I've noticed over the last couple of years, especially in a post-COVID world, heading more and more into the world of streaming. Most films these days get about 3 days, and
Yeah.
then if they're huge studio movies like an Avengers or something, then they'll get some longevity. Or if they have a particularly kind of cultural resonance, we might get a bit more time out of them. But otherwise,
Right.
most films just kind of get lost in the ether, and it's really quite sad. In the video store, I actually used to work in a video store. You would see
Yeah.
movies you'd never heard of, but at least they had a physical place. You could literally be
Right.
like, oh yeah, okay, I've never heard of this, but it's been put on a VHS, so therefore it must have some merit. And then you go and watch it, and
Right.
maybe maybe it wasn't the classic you thought it was going to be, but at least
Right.
it kind of it stood the test of time. Whereas now, yeah, it is becoming this very disposable fast food, as you mentioned. Which I find quite sad, to be honest. I feel like
Me too.
when
Yeah.
the art form is barely 100 years old, and we're kind of getting ready to throw it in the garbage. It's like, no, please don't, please don't do
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No, I agree, and I'm very much a memory person in relationship to how things feel
mm,
versus remembering tangible information, and I hate that about myself. Movie titles, certain dates and times, I'm horrible with that. Um, but there are periods of film
mm,
that resonate with me, and it would be nice to kind of get back to that. I even feel that way about like social media,
mhm,
or everything we kind of have access to express ourselves and connect with people. There's always, I feel like, this window of authenticity and just like no rules or boundaries, and um, where you connect with people
mm,
easier. Where after time, it's like now it's kind of formulated, and you've got to do this and this in order to gravitate to this audience, and then it just becomes overwhelming. There's so much to watch. There's so because things are just
yeah.
being pushed out left and right. So I really find myself now not really watching much
Mm,
unless it really is a trusted recommendation, or sometimes if it has a ton of views, like Netflix number one film, it's number one for a reason. But I really gravitate to foreign films more often than not.
oh, nice.
Yeah, I
Very
for
cool.
consistent good stories. Like I love my Korean thrillers and that type of
Yes.
stuff. Because they're still in that pocket of a certain kind of consistency with good layered storytelling.
Oh, that's so cool. You might be the first person this is a second first on the show, most measured response to the question. And now talking about Korean film. That's fantastic. It doesn't really come up too much on here. Most people kind of go with just like the classics. Is there anything from, because I agree, I 100% agree. I think there's less drive to hit a box office target with international film. It's more about the storytelling. So I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And I
Like
love,
remember that multi-million what was it called? It was an Indian film and it was
oh,
huge.
RRR. Is that the one?
Oh, that's a good one.
I
Someone
haven't.
told me about that and I was like, oh, this is good. I couldn't stop. I was like, really? What was that movie? Like 3 hours?
Yeah, I haven't seen
Right.
it. It's on my Netflix queue. But I just need to carve out 3 hours to dedicate the attention to, especially if it's going to be subtitled. I don't want to miss anything. So
Oh, it's good. It
yeah, I've
is
heard
good.
it.
Yeah, yeah. I watched that probably about 6 to 8 months ago. If that was on a one-off someone suggested. But no, this one was Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, yes. So with Dev Patel. Wow, that's going back
Yeah.
2011, I want to say. It was, yeah.
Right, but I remember when I went to go see that movie at an independent theater, and it hadn't made the waves. It was just kind of bouncing around, and I was like, "Oh my god,
Mm,
mom, we got to go see this movie." And
mm,
we went, and I love a good story, and
yes.
there's just so many being told, but a really good one,
Yeah.
it's hard to come by. I feel like, sadly, in American film.
It's so lovely you mentioned your mum. I had the reverse experience. My mum introduced me to Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah.
She introduced me to a lot of films. But I like to think of, in terms of my parental influence, my mum introduced me to classics, and my dad introduced me to cult films, and that's the kind
Wow.
of way that the way that it worked. But yes, I had a very similar experience with Slumdog Millionaire. I was like, "What is this?" Like, that's the guy from Skins, because I remembered that UK show from when I was a kid. I was like, "All right," and yeah, just a transformative experience. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those few Oscar nominated films I think really lives up to the hype. Like, especially these days. I'm a big fan of the Oscars. I love the ceremony of it all. But
Yeah.
you were talking about like the fast food nature of cinema before. Like, if your film isn't coming out in October onwards, it's not getting considered. Like, there's
Right.
very much a
Right.
window now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's strange that a window dictates whether something should be eligible for an award. And I think it comes back to, just the kind of in and out nature of, like, we've got to hit that box office, get it through so we can get to award season. It's like, no, like,
Yeah. Things
why?
feel rushed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or incentivized by money, quite frankly. I feel like
Yeah.
that kind of sabotages so many things, and it's definitely the entertainment industry. Can we take a beat?
Of course. Absolutely. Do we hit pause?
Nope. Yeah. One second. We're not here to teach.
Just took a quick little break. Sorry about that, Jeffrey. Well, I'm so
Quick
sorry.
commercial break.
You make such a wonderful point. What were you saying? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was speaking to just money being so tied
Mm.
into so many different things really just takes away from um, the authenticity and the patience of your creativity. You know,
Yes.
um, I've thought about that dynamic a lot, even in relationship to how I'm able to create. If I
Mm.
didn't have to concern myself with the money aspect, there's a different type of freedom that comes with the creative process.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I feel like money is the root of all.
It's tough, and I think that's why I really enjoyed Sean Baker's kind of uh, his what am I trying to award ceremony run this year. He obviously won Best Director for Anora at the Oscars, and his speech. I liked his speech at the Oscars, but I think it was at the Globes or at the Guild Awards. I can't remember. And he made this speech about the importance of supporting independent film, and kind of it was one of those things where I'd never seen any of his films before. I don't think. I think my first Sean Baker film is Anora, but after that speech, I was like, I will buy a ticket to every movie he makes, because, like,
Yeah,
clearly the guy, like, he's talking about it the way that I talk about it, and he's talking about it it's like, it's not just a money making machine. Like, yes, it's a business, it's the movie business, but there's so much passion and love behind it, just about this desire to tell stories. And as I mentioned before, for me, it's such a communication tool. Like, I don't know if you can tell, Jeffrey, but I'm kind of an awkward person. Definitely was in high school, and then I discovered movies. I was like, oh, this explains how I feel. Now I can use
right,
this as a tool to
right.
communicate. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm so glad there are still artists out there fighting the good fight, talking about that. And even, someone like Jonathan, like, going back to The Last Deal, like, listening to him talk about it. We talked about, what would you do next? And it seems like he has no real interest in doing studio films. He wants to keep doing what he's doing, which is amazing.
he's good at it. I don't blame him. I don't blame
Yeah.
him one bit. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's just seeing his process, and seeing people come together and say, yeah, let's make this happen. It's a
Mm.
good story. Like, you know, we're gonna make this work. But then even still, like I said, while we were shooting certain things that were guerrilla, there was still a structure.
Yes.
Everyone, you know what I mean? So that's yeah, that was admirable to watch and see that
Mm.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
sounded very regimented and official, like the way he was talking about it. But I was very interested to hear your perspective as well, because I know I've definitely done things like, oh yeah, that all went off without a hitch, and then someone will be like, Okay, that's your perspective. So I'm always interested to hear both sides of the story, which is really
Right.
wonderful. Um,
Yeah.
so you're in commercials from about 3 years old. You said. Do you continue that through elementary school, through high school? Are you basically working and studying your entire life? Is that the kind of the life that you live? Is that
Yeah, so then there's where life kind of intersects certain things. So I went through stints heavily up until I was probably about 12 or 13 years old.
Mhm.
Then things kind of took pause, finishing
Yeah.
high school, college, that whole thing. And then when I moved back to LA, I did some commercials here or there,
Mhm.
because oddly enough, when I lived in Phoenix, there was a commercial market there.
Yeah.
And then I did some modeling here or there. Um, and then yeah, I circled back to LA and then actually moving back, and then that's when I kind of started my commercial run again. But then when I started working on different sets for films and just like background work, or just wanting to be on set.
Mm.
Um, and then I remember when I saw the role for The Last Deal come up, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna audition for that. That sounds pretty cool.
Mm.
And I wasn't expecting to get it at all. So I'm just like, I'm not. I, that's not where my forte is, but it
Sure.
seems doable. I'm like, the character seemed relatable. I don't know. I'm like, I think I can embody this if given a shot, but I wasn't expecting much. So yeah. So when that circled back, it was great. But to answer your question, yeah, it was just kind of on and off. But my heavy duty run was probably up until teenage years, and then I moved from LA to a market that was non-existent when it came to entertainment. Then Houston.
Sure.
Um, yeah, now it's different, but
I was gonna
yeah.
say Texas is so known for its film industry now, like, and it's such a celebratory state of film, with the Alamo Draft House and stuff like that. You would think, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but not while I was there. Music was huge.
of course.
Beyonce and I have 6 degrees of separation in that in that area. So music was massive,
Yeah.
and it was a good exposure for me culturally. Very different from where I came from, and that's when kind of Houston's era of music really came to surface on a national level, where these were just like your neighborhood guys, as you're
Mhm.
moving about the city. So that was a really interesting time to be in Houston. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And what it sounds like from the film side of things, it sounds like, because you mentioned you kind of came back to LA and it was less about commercials and more about being on film sets. What I'm hearing and what I like about your story is it wasn't this kind of ruthless step on throats pursuit to just be in the limelight. You were just like, I just want to be on set. Like, it just sounds like you just want to be around the creative process. So how long was that journey once you came back to LA to get from I've been doing commercials to getting on set in
Mhm.
anything?
Yeah. It wasn't too long. I mean, I moved back to LA right at 2019.
Yep.
And that's when I kind of started my commercial runs. I started hopping on sets. I mean, LA is the mecca of film. So that wasn't too difficult to do for something like background and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So that kind of shifted gears. And it was right at the top of the year that I had auditioned for The Last Deal. But I had also booked a gig for Beyonce or
Oh
on her
wow.
set of Ivy Park. And I mean, everything just got turned upside down. And it was like, what, how are we going to sustain, this whole
Yeah.
thing? So yeah, it was a short stint. Like once I got back to LA, I kind of hit the ground running. I still kind of had a resume to kind of get me back in gear. But yeah, COVID was an interesting time
Yeah.
to be there for less than a year. So trying to navigate, your entertainment career, but things are constantly changing as far as how many people you can have on set. So that's when commercials really slowed down. I mean,
Yeah,
because that is
sure.
a big set more often than not. So then one minute you can only have this many people. Okay, we're closing all sets. Okay, we're opening, but it was all over the place.
Yeah.
So being able to be in an independent film space was ideal for the time that we were in, especially.
Yeah, I was gonna say that seems quick. Like you did kind of. I know you obviously were in commercials your entire life, and that probably helped a little bit, at least with your familiarity of how it all works, and maybe building some contacts. But to kind of land in LA and then be one of the leading roles in a film in less than a couple of years, that seems like the Hollywood dream. That kind of worked out
Right.
perfectly. Yeah.
No, it did, and I was just as surprised. So
Yeah.
I took the opportunity. Yeah.
Um, Fantastic. So we're kind of coming toward the end of the show and stuff. Before we get out of here, you've mentioned obviously an interest in directing. I'm very excited about that. So I can't wait. I hope it all comes to fruition because again, as I mentioned, your sensibilities, the choices you're making as a performer, I'd love to see what you do with that and apply it as a director. Um,
Thank you.
but while that's kind of building up, do you have um, any more acting gigs kind of lined up? Are you thinking about moving back in front of the camera? Is there anything kind of lined up, or is it just you're playing it as it comes, kind of?
Yeah, I am kind of playing it as it comes. I am positioning myself to be able to have a bit more creative control in regards to the behind the camera aspect. So that's going to take some planning and being a little bit strategic. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for. I know we talked a bit about kind of the substance of things, and I think for where I am in relationship to kind of what I've had access to participate in is not quite in alignment. So I'm
Yeah,
looking to take a bit more of control of the creative aspect of my life. Um,
that's really cool.
yeah,
I
we'll see.
love. I've spoken to a few people lately, a few actors who've kind of decided, yeah, it's time for me to get behind the camera. I want to change the narrative. I want to do things. I was very lucky. I just spoke to Gillian Bell a few weeks ago, and she's obviously been on our screens forever. And she said the same thing. She's like, look, I like being funny, but I can do way more and make way more change behind the camera. So I love that we have
Yeah,
so many performers. I think performers make the best directors because you spent so much time in front of the camera. You know how a set works, and you know how to make things operate smoothly and quickly, and you know how to do it all. So that's really exciting to me, Jeffrey. I think that's fantastic.
thank you, thank you. But I'm always going to stay on top of my social media platforms as much as I can, because I do still like connecting with an audience and with people, and I think that it just circled back. So that kind of like commercial instant gratification,
Mm,
I love that we have social media for those reasons. But I do want to kind of get into that director seat and
yeah.
see if we can make some scripts come to life.
Ah,
Because
that'd be
my really good friend David Gunn, he is an amazing writer.
yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to us collaborating together. Yes.
Nice. That's a shout out to David Gunn. Hopefully he
Yes.
hears this and we'll let him know. I do. I really enjoy your social media account. Obviously, once I'd seen the film, I followed everyone, so I could share the review that I did and stuff like that. But you are so active, but not. It's not in a an aggressive way. Like you see some social media accounts, my own included, where it's like every couple of hours there's a post. But you're pretty chill with yours, but still getting content out regularly. And I was shocked that I was able to communicate with you. It was so lovely and
So sweet. Oh my God, I'm so flattered. Absolutely.
it was very representative of you as a performer, but also just from this conversation, I'm like, oh, this is like Jeffrey's just a real person,
Yeah,
like just very real
absolutely. Oh,
and authentic, and yeah.
you're
Um,
sweet.
before we wrap things up, I always like to end the show on a bit of a rapid fire question round about your movie watching habits. And I say
Okay.
rapid fire; it'll probably take 20 minutes. We'll see how we go. You down with that to ask to talk about movies a bit more?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Excellent. So I know you said you don't watch things as often as you used to, given the nature of everything. But Jeffrey, what was the last movie you watched?
Oh, the last movie I watched was because I know I was on the plane.
Yep.
What did I watch? What's the last movie I watched? See, now you're gonna make me go into my phone and like look through my history. Oh my God. I'm so horrible with movie titles. Oh goodness. Am I stumped? Can I literally not remember the last movie that I watched? That is horrible. But okay, I will say, because it's not a new movie, but I did, you circle back to your
Of
favorite old
course.
movie, right? Of course. So I'm a sucker for Wizard of Oz. I know that
Yes, you
sounds
mentioned
super
it before.
cheesy,
So,
but that like my nostalgia movie that I'll watch probably once every 3 to 6 months.
oh
Um,
wow,
and I
awesome.
know I could have come up with something better than that. And as soon as we're done is when I'm gonna say, I remember I watched. That's how it always works.
That's a good answer though. I
Oh,
think
you
there's.
know what? Actually, no, no, no. In theaters, I did go see Sinners.
Oh, what did you think of Sinners?
Yeah, I loved it. And it was a movie that I wasn't tapped in as far as what was going on social media wise. Like I said, I don't watch TV much. Um, and I just moved to the East Coast. And so I was like, oh, what do I want to do today? And my friend posted, oh, I saw Sinners. It was amazing. I'm like, Sinners, what's that?
Mm,
It was such a roller coaster because I had no context,
hmm
right? it's considering it's a vampire movie, but it doesn't really start off that way. I was like, this is amazing and should be an award sweeper.
It
So yeah.
you're I 100% agree. It like I went to see it. I think it was opening weekend here in Australia, and it was
Mhm.
the first time I think since COVID I had a packed theater. Like the theater
Yeah.
was so full that someone came in late and I had to move so he could sit with his friends. Like that hasn't happened since before COVID. It was so full. Um, and what a
Good.
great theatrical experience. And I'm so glad it's been so successful. Like it's made, like, obviously Ryan Coogler's a wonderful director, but
He is amazing.
you've got a predominantly uh, black cast who we're told constantly isn't like there's no market for that. We're constantly told it can't be women, it can't be people of minorities or anything like that, and it just blew the doors off. Like thank God,
Every time. Yeah.
yeah,
No, it was such an impeccable story. It was
Mm.
so fun, but it was also so layered and so intentional.
Yes,
I love a good intentional, detailed, to the point that because I had no context, I was like, I gotta go see it again.
yeah,
I know I missed some things because I was just so entertained, right? I was getting the surface story, but I was like, no, there's some layers here. We got to pull it back. So yeah, I Sinners was my last like movie theater
yeah.
movie.
It's a magic trick. It's to me, it like I told it would be a long, rapid fire question round because now you got me excited about Sinners. But like, it's such a magic trick because it has such a grounded beginning. Like you mentioned, like it doesn't start off that way. Like it really takes its time
Yeah,
to build the story. It's heartfelt. It's emotional. It manages to tell. I think with a bit of a message in there, which you don't always get with horror films. And then also like Jeffrey, it's kind of sexy. Like it's kind of a
yeah,
sexy
yeah.
movie.
Well, I, contrary to most, I think Michael B. Jordan is handsome in his own right, but I wasn't really, I'm not like oh my God, I gotta. But this role,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this really just showed what he was capable of because I really felt like he had a twin and there was such a distinction.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could only imagine the work that I have a new respect for him as an actor. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
great, great,
wonderful.
great film. Yeah.
I hope they get all the acknowledgments they
I don't
deserve.
see
Like,
how they could not. I really
well, as we
don't.
said before, it was released before October, so we might, we
Yeah,
might.
well, yeah, he got a ways to go. But yeah, great, great, great film.
Excellent! What a great answer. That's the first. You're the first person to bring that up on the show. So excellent.
I was
Um,
slow to answer, but it came. It came.
that's okay. That's not a problem at all. There's no rules here. We take our time. Jeffrey, what's one movie that's been sitting on your watch list forever? As film fans, there's always something that keeps eluding us. So, what's something you should have seen or you've wanted to see, but for whatever reason you just haven't?
Oh wow. I can't really say that there's been a movie that I've been wanting to see that I haven't. It's mostly shows. Like I feel like I'm out of the loop on shows.
Sure, you can
Um,
go for it.
yeah. There's a popular one, Behind Her Eyes. I haven't seen that. Everyone's
Okay.
talking about it. I feel really out of the loop with Abbott Elementary. That's like huge, and I'm like
Yeah.
completely out of loop on that. Um, there's been a few shows. I don't know. Maybe it's because of my limited time. The
Mm.
commitment of episodic. But yeah, I'm so behind on TV shows. My
I'm
watch list is endless.
I'm terrible with TV. That's why it's not called I was a teenage TV snob. 'Cause I just
Right,
never have
exactly. Yeah.
time. Like
I'm like, yeah, but
and I think because especially in the age of streaming now, everything is it's that they're still going for that box office window, even though there is no box office. It's like here's 13 episodes. It's Friday. You better watch them by Sunday, otherwise it's going to get ruined. And
yeah. And
Disney,
also these long episodes, like these
yeah,
hour and a half, 2 hour. I'm like, that's a movie. I'd rather, yeah.
that's why I'm
And
behind on Stranger Things. I saw the runtime. Like one of these episodes is 2 hours long. I was like, I'll get to it, but that season came out during the pandemic. It's been at least 3 years, and I haven't gone back to it. I
yeah,
will. I will. I like
yeah,
that show. I like those performers. But gee, like, yeah, that whole kind of approach to TV shows, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, ironically, I will watch Seinfeld or The Office like for 4 hours straight, but I don't want to feel like
yeah.
I have to. I want to have that
Right.
freedom to do it. So,
Well, I'll tell you now to reiterate on RRR.
yeah.
That was a movie that I saw the timestamp, and I'm no stranger to subtitles because I like to watch a lot of foreign films.
Mm.
But it wasn't. The dialogue was thorough, but I didn't find myself like sometimes you feel like you have to choose between the subtitles depending on
Yeah.
how heavy.
Yep.
It's not that at all,
Mm.
but it's extremely entertaining from start to finish. I hated that it ended. I never
Yeah.
recognized it was 3 hours. So you
Oh,
gotta.
that's awesome. That's
That's
great. What a ringing endorsement for that movie. That's awesome.
that's
Um,
great.
you just reminded me. You mentioned Korean cinema before, and I was going to ask you, and then I got distracted as I often do on this show. What are some of your Korean favorites? What are some of your favorite movies out of that
Oh,
region?
here you go, testing my memory again.
Because I know a
Um,
lot of people love Parasite, but I like going back even further
no,
to see.
Parasite was amazing. I
Yeah.
remember that was, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I come across films right before it
Mm,
becomes like a big deal. And I remember that was one of the random ones that I was like, oh,
mm,
I like the structure of the pictures or the description or
yeah.
whatever. But no, Parasites is amazing. Like I said, you're gonna ask me the names. I'm so horrible at names of films. Um, so bad. I have to do better. Um, there's one particular film, it's relatively new, but
Mhm.
it's about a woman who passes away and she gets to reunite with her husband. But in the process of that, of going to heaven or hell, you get to choose if you go to heaven what age you want to be.
Oh wow.
And so both her and her husband died very old, technically. And so she almost changed her age to younger, but instead she stayed older because she remembered a memory of her husband saying she was beautiful no matter what. But then when she meets her husband, he chose to be young. And so they're playing out their relationship. So that is most recently what I watched. That was a Korean film that was so good.
Oh, that's amazing.
I hate I don't remember the name of it. I told you I remember storylines and horrible titles.
I'm gonna
But yeah.
bug you constantly about Korean films because I love Korean cinema. It's funny, like Squid Game came out and the world exploded. I was like, guys, like Squid Game's great, but there was Korean cinema before Squid Game. Like, there's so
No,
much.
literally. Yeah,
Um,
no, Swimming is really good. But yeah, they've got it down when it comes to really good films. And once you get a couple good ones in,
mm,
it'll suggest amazing film after
yeah.
film.
Yeah, I love I love international movies. I talk about this quite a bit because if I don't bring it up on the show, no one else does normally. But so thank you for bringing up Korean cinema and Indian cinema. I just think there's so much to learn and enjoy, because it's such a different perspective. That's why I find international horror films to be the scariest because I know what scares Australians and Americans and British people. We're all scared of the same sort of stuff. But I
Yeah,
don't know what's scary in Japan. And they have this whole rich tapestry of folklore that's been going on for centuries. And same with, the middle of Europe. I find those to be far more scary because they're not what I'm used to seeing. So I'm so glad
right.
you brought up Korean cinema.
Yeah, there's definitely a rhythm to like um your own culture or country's storytelling patterns with
Mm,
certain things. So yeah, it creates a certain kind of suspense. But
yeah.
yeah, Koreans have a real love for horror. They just do it
Mm,
so good. Like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Love action films.
And great like crime films and revenge films. Like I could go on for for
Yeah,
ages.
yeah, yeah.
But I won't do that to you. I'll wait. I'll jump into your DMs later with all those recommendations. Um, Jeffrey, are you someone who cries in the movies? Are you a movie crier?
Wow. What's the last movie I cried in? Hmm. Because I remember the moment I cried. I remember what movie was that? Because it wasn't that long ago. But I'm not consistently a movie crier. Now, my mother,
Okay.
on the other hand, yes. And I'll look over and she's like, "Stop! I know you're gonna say something. I'm crying." I'm not typically a movie crier. No.
Okay.
Probably because I'm a late responder emotionally. I'm a head first, then heart. I'll 2 hours after I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, it was great. Not, not a big movie crier.
I'm gonna go watch movies with your mum because I bawl my eyes out every single time. Like I cry at the dumbest stuff, to be honest.
I
I
feel like
think,
the older that I get, the more emotionally like in tune I am with films and stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm still not a full blown on the spot crier yet.
Nothing wrong with it. I'm always I only ask that question because I know how much of a cry I am. Like I think I'm broken, Jeffrey. 'Cause I'll never cry in real life, but in a movie, like at the drop of a hat, like I took my daughter to go see Lilo and Stitch this past weekend, and
Oh,
the amount of times I cried was, frankly irresponsible. So,
you gotta let it out. You gotta let it
that's
out.
it. Well, this is an interesting question because I don't normally get to ask this of performers. I'm normally asking this of just like friends and family. But as someone who's been in front of the camera for entire life, basically, are there actors and actresses that you follow? Are they the price of admission for you? We're like, yep, that person's in. I'm seeing the movie. Doesn't matter what it is. Do you follow anyone in particular?
Oh yeah, I mean Sean Penn.
Yep.
I mean, you know, Robert De Niro, if he's in it, I'm going. Who else? Will Smith.
Yeah, yeah, of course, absolutely.
Inevitably. Yeah, I mean, gosh, what an amazing career to have, right?
Yeah,
Like, just the name alone, I'm there.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think I could add Michael B to that list too.
Yeah,
I think I
he's
can.
definitely, I mean, he's been wonderful forever, but he's really starting to make, like, I
Yeah.
remember in 2015, like when he started doing a couple of things. I think he was just about to do Creed, I think maybe, and people were like
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan. But I remember seeing him in, I think it was in Chronicle, if I remember correctly, which is like this little independent
Mhm.
sci-fi film
Yeah.
from the early 2010s. Like, yeah, he's a heavy hitter, like, which is great.
Yeah, no, he's always done really immaculate films.
Mm.
I mean, I think even it's so hard when you're a big star because I think I first saw him in Fruitvale, but
Yeah,
when yeah, right. So he's always done like amazing, amazing roles. Um, and depending on who's listening, I may get like my head chopped off for this, but there are
not at
certain
all.
amazing actors that they still have a formula,
Yep.
right? So it's a great movie, but I still see them. There's a formula. Sinners to me took Michael B out of that formula. An
Interesting.
amazing actor that I love is Denzel Washington, but
Yeah.
I feel like I know his formula with every role. There's he's great. I
Yeah.
believe it, but I still see him in a certain way. And that's just I think the case with being a big actor. You can only be different so much, right? Depending on the role.
That's
But
really,
there's certain people that are there's a formula, but then there's others that I'm like Johnny Depp. I just
yes.
feel like I don't see Johnny at all in
Mm.
every role. So yeah.
That's fascinating. I always think about the formula of storytelling, but I've never
Mhm.
thought about the formula of performance. What a really interesting insight that is. I'd never even considered that, but you're right. There are definitely certain beats they'll hit, the way they're going to approach things, the way they're going to, wow,
Mhm.
you just blow my mind, Jeffrey. I've never thought about it like that before. Um, just when I think I know everything, and I never do. I'm always learning more, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Johnny Depp because I feel like he's one of those actors who I did think had a formula because I was like, Johnny Depp, he's going to be behind makeup. And then, like, there's this whole period of time, I was like, can he just not wear makeup for a bit? Like, I just want to see his
I
face
know.
again.
I
Um,
know, I know. Yeah, but he's got I and again, you know, reality is one's perspective, right? But if he's the type of actor for some reason, I forget it's Johnny Depp every
yeah,
time. And
you
that's
are
I
right.
find super
Uh,
tough to harness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be thinking about the formula of acting for the rest of the day. And it's only early. It's not even 7 a.m. yet, Jeffrey. I'm going to think about this all day. So,
Too early for this.
we're almost at the end of the rapid fire. You can see it's not so rapid. We don't like to be negative. Clearly, I think I've cemented myself as someone who tries to focus on the positive in everything regarding film. But, Jeffrey, what's the worst film you've ever seen?
Oh wow, the worst. Oh God. Maybe because I'm a little biased. Having worked in aviation, but like snakes on a plane with like super hokey. with Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, that's definitely in like my that was a rough one. Um
That's an interesting one because I love schlock. I'll watch anything. Like, when I discovered the
it was just
toxic
ridiculous. It
when I
wasn't
just
saying it was bad, it was just so
yeah,
ridiculous.
when I discovered the Toxic Avenger, felt like a piece of me had finally returned home. I was like, oh my god, like, these movies exist. Like, yes, but I think Snakes on a Plane is interesting because isn't that the first film that kind of went viral and had like a vote on the name of this movie? So I wonder, like, whether that maybe in turn has contributed to the fast food nature of film that we're dealing with
Oh, for
these
sure.
days.
No, it was fully conducive to the social media world. Like the
Mm,
amount of bits you could pull or just
mm,
like ridiculous moments, like that is what social media is made for.
yeah.
But in terms of actually practically sitting and watching the film, this is crazy. Yeah, it was a good bad film.
Yeah. Okay, good. No, like, it's never been brought up on the podcast before, so good one. I like that. I haven't watched that since it came. I remember when it came out on DVD. I was working the video, so I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I had a lot of fun with it, but I can definitely understand why you wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
Um, And then my last question, Jeffrey, is what's one film they should never remake? We're in a world of remakes and reboots and requels, and
That's so true.
yeah. So what should they never touch?
Oh wow. I would hope they would never touch because again, the narrative is so done and popularized with drug films, but there are just certain classics like The Godfather.
Hmm.
I don't need that to be, a 4 or 5. Just leave it as it is.
Hmm.
What else? Because I talk about this a lot in conversation with music and film. Um, what's another classic that shouldn't be touched? Yeah, but I'd say something like the because what's the other? It's kind of a mafia film too, but there was The Godfather and another one. But I feel like they did the solid one, two, and threes of those films, and now they
Mm,
try to do that generally with films, and it's like no, the substance of the story gets lost. We're almost
yeah,
like programmed now where if there's a two or a three, we're kind of like
yeah.
you're forcing it. I feel like this is money two and three. You're on the strength of the first one. So yeah.
Excellent, great answer. Godfather's a really good answer. Yeah, Goodfellas. Is that what you're thinking of? Is that the
Oh
other?
yeah, Goodfellas.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's another one that I'm like,
that might be a perfect
mhm.
movie. That's a really good
Yeah,
movie. It's really
yeah,
good, and that's another one you talk about. RRR. Like Goodfellas is 3 hours long, and you can just sit there. Like, if it's on, good luck trying not to watch it. It's just like I'm going to sit here for the whole 3 hours.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Jeffrey, you've been incredible. Thank you so much for giving me so much of your time today and having a chat. It's been so much fun and like listening to you talk about the films you love and just having a chat. It's what I love to do. So thank you so much for being so generous and doing me this kindness. Um,
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Before we get out of the episode, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you on social media? Well, obviously, everyone go look for The Last Deal. It's on Amazon Prime globally. I think. I think it's everywhere in the world.
Yeah,
Just
it's
about.
on Prime. It's on Stars. It's on TV. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm my social media is just my name, Jeffrey Lauren. Jeffrey with an I. Yeah.
Reach out to Jeffrey. Go support her. Show her some love. She's so lovely. I can't believe we got to do this morning. So again, thank you so much. And people don't know behind the scenes. Like I had a glitch with my booking system, and I had to like scramble to try and make it work. And you were so accommodating. So thank you so much. Um,
Great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, go and support Jeffrey. Go and support the film. It's a wonderful film. She's brilliant in it. Like you'll see what I mean when I say like she's earnest and natural. Like she's so wonderful in it. Thank you for everyone for listening to the show. You haven't listened to my interview with Jonathan Salemi? Go back and listen to that as well. It's a great precursor to this one. I think next week the team will be back, so we'll be talking about movies and all sorts of fun there. But until then, thank you. As I say on the show every week, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.